Blake Lively has been hit with yet another lawsuit, you guys. Honestly, it sounds like a joke at this point because this situation has just gotten so messy that there are multiple lawsuits in this Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively situation. And we are going to break down what the heck is this new lawsuit. When you think things might start to simmer down with this story, guess again because, yep, another lawsuit has come up and, well, it's not looking good for Blake Lively. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Blake is being sued by a crisis management firm that she named in her complaint against Justin Baldoni. Jed Wallace, owner of Street Relations, filed a multi-million-dollar suit against Blake on Tuesday in federal court in Texas. In his lawsuit, Jed states that he didn't engage in harassment or retaliation against Blake and has been lumped into the accusations by being named in her complaint. He also argues that he has suffered millions of dollars in reputational harm due to being named in the complaint, which is why he is seeking millions in his lawsuit. If you're having trouble keeping up, this is now the 5th lawsuit filed in connection with the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni scandal. In December, Blake filed a federal lawsuit against Justin Baldoni. In December, Justin filed his libel lawsuit against the New York Times, and Stephanie Jones filed a defamation lawsuit against Justin Baldoni. She is also Justin's former publicist, if you do not remember. In January, Justin filed a lawsuit against Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and their publicist Leslie Sloan. And now we have Jed Wallace suing Blake Lively for mentioning him in her complaint against Justin. Specifically, Jed is mentioned in the complaint when they are talking about Justin Baldoni hiring a PR crisis management team and accusing them of creating online hate towards Blake in order to protect Justin. In her complaint, it says, in the weeks and months that followed, with the direction and approval of Wayfarer and Mr. Baldoni, the team engaged in a sophisticated, coordinated, and well-financed retaliation plan. The retaliation campaign relied on more than just publicists and crisis managers spinning stories. They also retained subcontractors, including a Texas-based contractor named Jed Wallace, who weaponized a digital army around the country from New York to Los Angeles to create, seed, and promote content that appeared to be authentic on social media platforms and internet chat forums. The Baldoni Wayfarer team would then feed pieces of this manufactured content to unwitting reporters, making content go viral in order to influence public opinion and thereby cause an organic pile-on. To safeguard against the risk of Miss Lively ever revealing the truth about Mr. Baldoni, the Baldoni Wayfarer team created, planted, amplified, and boosted content designed to eviscerate Miss Lively's credibility. They engaged in the same techniques to bolster Mr. Baldoni's credibility and suppress any negative content about him. On August 10th, the day after release of the film, Miss Nathan's team reported that they had started to see shift on social due largely to Jed and his team's effort to shift the narrative against Miss Lively. Included were text messages from Jennifer Abel's phone that said, "Hi team, so far, extremely limited pickup on Daily Mail or Page 6. We'll continue to keep an eye out and send pieces as needed, but so far it's been steady coverage and pure speculation. We've also started to see a shift on social due largely to Jed and his team's effort to shift the narrative towards shining a spotlight on Blake and Ryan. Again, we'll continue to send links and screenshots, but wanted to send an update in the meantime." That same day, Miss Nathan noted that as part of this shift, the majority of socials are so pro-Justin, and I don't even agree with half of them, LOL. Jed Wallace was also mentioned later in the complaint, as it stated earlier on August 9, 2024, Miss Nathan had shared with Miss Abel that she had been informed, "We are crushing it on Reddit." In the complaint is included a text from Melissa to Jennifer where she is quoting Jed apparently saying, "We're crushing it on Reddit." The complaint also says Miss Nathan's reference to Jed is a reference to Mr. Jed Wallace, an independent contractor based in Austin, Texas, who was retained by TAG to perform social media services on behalf of Wayfarer and Mr. Baldoni in connection with TAG's engagement. The quotation appears to be a reference to efforts by Mr. Wallace to seed and influence online forums on Reddit attacking Miss Lively and defending Mr. Baldoni. The same day, an employee of TAG texted a link to a salacious story about Miss Lively's family and noted, "The tides are swirling around Ryan now, FYI." Along these same lines, the team had previously shared an upsetting TikTok video which called for Blake to divorce Ryan, writing, "You guys will love this." TAG then described this post as very helpful. Now, Blake's attorneys have previously filed a legal notice in Hays County, Texas. This notice suggested that they had intended to request permission from the court to depose, question under oath, Jed as part of their legal proceedings. However, the request was withdrawn or dropped last month as they decided not to pursue the deposition of Jed. But still, due to the fact that he's mentioned in her complaint, he's not happy. And his attorneys claim that Blake Lively should not be protected by litigation privilege, which would usually shield parties from defamation claims for statements made during legal proceedings. But Jed's attorneys argue that Blake's attorneys distributed her civil rights complaint to various media outlets, generating widespread publicity, which they believe falls outside the protection of litigation privilege, which is also what Justin's legal team has been arguing as well, that Blake and her team may have crossed the boundaries of litigation privilege by publicizing her civil rights complaint to the media, turning it into this public spectacle rather than keeping it confined to legal proceedings. And on the website that Justin recently launched that he shared his amended complaint on, as well as a timeline of relevant events, his legal team is alleging that metadata from the New York Times article reporting on Blake's complaint back in December indicates that the publication began preparing the piece as early, allegedly, as October 31st, 2024. This is significant because Blake filed her civil rights complaint on December 21st, 2024, suggesting that this article was in development well before the official complaint was filed. And Justin's legal team argues that this early preparation implies a coordinated effort between Blake and the New York Times to defame him, challenging the protections typically afforded by litigation privilege. They claim that the timing of the article's development undermines the legal defenses that Blake and the New York Times might rely upon. In response, the New York Times has refuted these allegations, stating that the date observed in the metadata is generated by Google software and does not reflect when they received or began working on Blake's complaint. They are saying that those claims are based on incorrect assumptions by internet sleuths. Specifically, it was reported by ABC regarding the amended complaint posted to the website. The Times said the Baldoni Wayfarer legal filings are rife with inaccuracies about the New York Times, including, for example, the bogus claim that the Times had early access to Miss Lively's state civil rights complaint. Mr. Baldoni's lawyers base their erroneous claim on postings by amateur internet sleuths, who, not surprisingly, are wrong. The sleuths have noted that a version of the Lively state complaint published by the Times carries the date December 10th, even though the complaint wasn't filed until more than a week later. The problem, that date is generated by Google software and is unrelated to the date when the Times received it and posted it. And this is the December 10th date in reference. And according to Justin's amended complaint, it states, as other members of the public pointed out, web crawler data appears to indicate that the PDF of the CRD complaint linked within the article was uploaded to Times servers even earlier, specifically using a search engine to search for the CRD complaint within the Times static document repository, where the CRD complaint is stored and referenced by a link in the article, shows that a web crawler, a program that scours the internet to locate and catalog websites and files, recorded the CRD complaint PDF as having been uploaded as early as December 10th, 2024. It's also noted in his amended complaint, however, as various online commentators have noted, this may indicate that a web crawler cataloged an earlier created version of the document that was then replaced with a new version that was identical except for the creation and modification dates, causing the web crawler to view it as the same document. In other words, one plausible explanation for the mismatch between the web crawler's date and the file created modified dates is that the New York Times re-uploaded the CRD complaint at the last minute, specifically to cover up the fact that they had been colluding with Lively and other Lively parties for weeks. Obviously, the New York Times is saying that this is not true what Justin's legal team is claiming based on what internet sleuths have found, which I talked about in my last video on this, that people have been online calling out the metadata here, making allegations of the New York Times working on this Blake Lively complaint story way before it was published and way before she had even filed her complaint. And it seems Justin's team saw these videos and used it in their amended complaint. But the New York Times is saying that's not true. Now, in terms of the new lawsuit against Blake filed by Jed Wallace, who seems to be using this to his advantage here, on Wednesday, TMZ reported Chip Babcock, a partner in the Texas law firm Jackson Walker LLP that represents Jed Wallace, tells TMZ Blake Lively made false statements to the press through a private administrative filing, claiming Mr. Wallace and Street Relations had harassed her, retaliated against her, aided and abetted others who did the same, breached a contract with her, and engaged in other improper conduct. Mr. Wallace, who is a very private person, has never met or spoken to Ms. Lively ever. He is not engaged in a smear campaign against her at any point in time. The decision to file this lawsuit to rightfully protect himself and his family was made after Ms. Lively not only filed against him first in Texas, but indicated she intended to name him in yet another lawsuit. This situation continues to just get messier by the day, honestly, and I can't believe we have added another lawsuit into the mix here, but we will just have to see if it's the last, because who knows when it comes to this case. But as of right now, that's what's going on in the situation. I want to know what you guys think about all of this in the comments. I love you guys so much, and I